All right, listeners. Now is a great time to talk about a new partner of ours here on Acquired, Legora, the agentic operating system that is redefining how the world's best legal teams work.
Yep, it's sort of obvious that AI is going to completely change the legal industry. I bet most of you listening have dropped a contract into some sort of AI chatbot out there. Legora took that insight and asked the question, what if you really built something with that power from the ground up for the legal industry?
So the founders did exactly what great founders do, operate with obsessive customer focus. They embedded inside a massive law firm for months. They sat with the lawyers just watching how the work really gets done.
And that's how you get features that customers love, like tabular review, where you drop in a folder of hundreds of contracts and it pulls every key term into a grid a lawyer can actually work with. Legora's bet here is interesting. Since it lets each lawyer handle more complexity, any given person can increase the quality of their work and do higher value work. And this means that the pie can grow even as each individual task takes less time.
And they recently launched Legora Agent, offering greater intelligence and performance. The agent lets lawyers set an objective. Then it can handle the planning and the execution and delivery of the final product. Legal teams get to maintain full control and transparency since they're still involved where judgment is required.
And Legora works where you already work. You can use it within Microsoft Word while redlining or drafting. The early Legora numbers essentially speak for themselves. When they have a head-to-head pilot with their top competitor, they win 70% of the time. Legora now has over 100,000 lawyers on the platform from 1,200 legal teams in 50 countries. And crazily, they went from 1 million to 100 million in ARR in about 18 months.
Truly insane numbers. And that is the real test. Plenty of things demo well, but the question is whether a busy associate actually reaches for it during crunch time, or whether a partner trusts it before going into a conversation with a major client. If your legal team wants to check it out, whether you're a law firm or you're in-house at a company, you can learn more at legora.com/acquired and just tell them that Ben and David sent you.
Hey guys, it's Ben. The audio in today's show is a little degraded since we recorded from Skype, but we're super pumped about the show nonetheless. Bear with us and we'll get the kinks worked out for future shows.
Who got the truth? Is it you? Is it you? Is it you? Who got the truth now? Is it you? Is it you? Is it you? Sit me down, say it straight. Another story on the way. Who got the truth?
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Acquired, the podcast where we talk about startup acquisitions that actually went well. I'm Ben Gilbert.
I'm David Rosenthal.
And we're here today to talk about the Bungie acquisition by Microsoft.
And most importantly, we have a very special surprise for everyone. This is our first episode with a special guest, and we have a really incredible one for you guys. Joining us today is Ed Fries, who was at Microsoft during the acquisition and actually was the person at Microsoft whose group led the acquisition of Bungie. So we're very honored to have Ed with us today. He was at Microsoft from 1986 to 2004, led the acquisition of Bungie, and among many others. And today he's a prolific angel investor and startup advisor and board member in the game space and others in technology, which is how we got to know him. And we're totally honored to have Ed with us today.
Thanks. I didn't realize I was your first guest. That's exciting.
Yeah, we try to keep that part secret.
Now everybody knows.
You guys are old pros. I know. It's good.
David, you want to do the acquisition history and facts?
Yeah. So most people are probably familiar with Bungie, the creators of the video game franchise Halo. The company was founded in the early 90s by two undergrads at the University of Chicago, Alex Seropian and Jason Jones, and they made a few games, mostly for Mac, actually, during the 90s, including hits such as Minotaur, The Labyrinths of Crete, and others. And then they had their first breakout success with a game called Marathon at the end of 1994, and then had a couple of successful sequels and other projects that came out of that. Ben, you have a fun personal history with.
Yep. Yeah, actually, my dad was a reviewer for the Mac Users of Delaware of Marathon, kind of in the real early days before it came out, and then as the trilogy unfolded. And he sent me some pictures last night. We actually have the collector's edition box set of the Marathon trilogy for Mac.
Pretty cool. And so that was Bungie for most of the 90s, and then in the late 90s. In 1999, they unveiled to great fanfare their next project after Marathon, which was a game that they were calling Halo. They actually unveiled it at a Macworld Keynote in the summer of 99, and it was introduced by Steve Jobs himself. And they continued working on it for another year, and then in the summer of 2000, there was a twist. And Ed steps in, and and Microsoft in June of 2000 announced that they were acquiring Bungie and Halo, and that Halo would become an exclusive launch title for the forthcoming Xbox console, which was going to launch the next year. And everything changed at that moment. So, Ed, thanks again for joining us. Take us back to, it was 15 years ago now. How did it all happen? How did it come together?
Well, first, I was also a Bungie game player even before I started running Microsoft's game business. I played a couple games in their Myth series, which was their real-time strategy series. And so I was a big fan of these guys. I knew that they did really good work. We got final approval to make the Xbox at a meeting we called it Valentine's Day Massacre that happened in February 2000. And so starting then, my life was really crazy because I knew that I needed a portfolio of games ready for launch in, November 2001, which was less than 2 years away. Normally games take...
And no developers even knew about the Xbox at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was just an idea before then. And so I was desperate for content, and what happened was one day my phone rang, and it was a guy named Peter Tamte who did biz dev for Bungie, who I'd gotten to know over the previous few years, and he told me that Bungie was in bad financial trouble. They were running out of money, and they were likely going to be acquired, if nothing else happened, that they were going to be acquired by Take-Two. Take-Two already owned a third of Bungie from an earlier transaction, and he wanted to see if I was interested. By the way, there's some debate about this point because also John Kimmick was also involved. So there's a guy named one of our product planners, John Kimmick. His job was to go out and talk to lots of game companies, and so he was also talking to them at the same time. So I don't know if I talked to him first or John talked to him first, but it doesn't matter. Peter called me, told me this stuff, and I said, "Yeah, I'm very interested. I mean, I really respect your work, and I'd love to hear what you guys are up to." And that was the start of it.
Wow, and I mean, I got to imagine there were other maybe 15 or 20 or so launch titles for the Xbox when it came out. So, you guys did do partnerships and with other game developers out there. Was there something special about Bungie kind of, or Halo in particular, or just that you knew these guys were talented and the conversation started and went from there? Did you have other high-profile targets that you were looking at?
At that time, if any talented developer walked through my door, I was going to try to do a deal with them because I had a big pile of money. That wasn't my problem. I had less than 2 years, and I needed to try to get this portfolio done. And so that I was definitely happy to talk to them and try to put something together.
Did you try to do any other acquisitions at this time? Were you thinking about doing like an all first party launch if you could get it with the pile of money?
No, we were always going to do a mix of first and third party. We knew we needed that, and at launch it was about half and half. We had signed a deal with Lorne Lanning and his group Oddworld Inhabitants. That was probably the first big deal we did. And that was kind of a big deal because we pulled them away from Sony, who had published their previous game. So, in fact, there's a funny Penny Arcade comic from the time where Lorne Lanning's talking about how great it is to work with Microsoft and how he's really wants to work with us. And then in the last panel, he says, "Plus, they gave me this hat made of money." He's wearing this. Anyway,
yeah. What were some of the kind of selling points for bringing those guys in house? I mean, what you've got a lot of different tools at your disposal for coming and joining and working directly with and for the company that's developing the platform. What were your hooks for that?
So, we had done multiple acquisitions before we started the Xbox when I was running the PC business. Probably the biggest one is a company called FASA that did Mech Warrior and Shatter, all those. But we never went out with a goal of acquiring a company. Our goal was to find the best game developers in the world and support them with whatever way was best for them. Okay. I mean,
whether it was publishing or acquisition or
exactly. And so in this case, the developer was calling and saying, "We're running out of money." Bungie at that time was a developer / publisher. They did both, and it was more common then, but pretty much all the little developer publishers were going out of business because doing distribution back then was becoming harder and harder for a little company to do. I mean, to try to knock on the door of a Walmart and that kind of thing.
Probably especially as the world was shifting to console, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in their case, they were both a developer and a publisher, and we're finding that just wasn't going to work out anymore. And so that's what started the conversation. Then I got a chance to see Halo, basically to see that trailer that they showed at Macworld, and knew that this is something I really hoped I could get for us, as part of our lineup.
Did you or anybody else at Microsoft have any qualms about acquiring a company that was mostly a Mac developer at that point, or was it just all about the content?
No, I didn't care about the Mac thing at all, honestly. I mean, they had done Myth versions of their games, or I'm sorry, they did PC versions of their games, like PC versions of Myth, for example. So I knew that they could do PC versions, and the Xbox, especially in the early days, the Xbox was thought of basically as a PC disguised as a console. So I wasn't worried about them having the technical ability to do it.
They were always working on Halo for Mac before. Did you have to tear it all down and re-architect it for PC and then do a PC port to Mac later? Or how much of Halo was already done when you had acquired it?
None, basically.
Which is funny because if you watch the Macworld trailer, I think it was Jason who presented it on stage. He makes a big deal about this is all running native on Mac and being rendered real time.
Yeah, and it's got these wild animals running around and stuff.
Yeah, and what I loved is they don't actually show Master Chief or anyone else killing any Covenant because I guess probably I could imagine Apple didn't want any deaths on stage at Macworld.
Yeah, well, I mean, so we can talk about the development of it. Let me talk a little more about the deal first, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So
great.
The thing was, I wanted Halo, right? And I wanted the development team that was working on Halo. I basically wanted all the developers in the company. And so but Take-Two already owned part of the company. So I had to call up the head of Take-Two, which is a guy named Ryan Brandt, and we kind of had to work out between the two of us how to split the company into two pieces. And so Bungie was developing two titles at that time. They were
right, Oni, right?
Yeah, Oni was the other game. Very good. So Bungie had two teams, one in Chicago and one down in California. And the California team was doing Oni, and the Chicago team was doing Halo. And so basically the deal I struck with Ryan was that he would get ownership of all the back catalog. So all the intellectual property for all the Bungie titles that had been published so far. Plus we would finish Oni for them and ship Oni. And then the Oni developers, once it was done, would move to Redmond and become part of our team. And the Chicago guys would come as well. So basically all I got was the Halo IP, plus all the developers. And he got Oni and the back catalog. And then between the two of us, we acquired the company basically. And some people think I got the better part of that deal. I don't know.
Honestly, at the time, though, you make the best decisions that you feel like are aligned with each of your incentives, and you do the most with what you walked away with.
Yeah, and Ryan was great to work with, and he and I did deals after that. I don't think there were any hard feelings among any of the parties involved in the deal. So.
All right, listeners, now is a great time to tell you about a longtime friend of the show, Vanta. AI has scrambled the whole security picture. It used to be that you proved that you were secure once a year, an audit or a static PDF, then everyone would nod and you're done. But in an AI-first world, that doesn't hold up anymore.
Yep, your risk surface changes every week now. A vendor turns on an AI feature or someone writes in a new model without telling IT, and your posture is different than it was last week, let alone at your last audit. Vanta's own research found that around 70% of companies have this quote-unquote shadow AI running with no security review at all.
Right. And that's where Vanta comes in. They're the leading agentic trust platform, meaning they've built the thing that closes the gap. And the way that they close that gap is Vanta Agent. Think of it as a GRC engineer, that's governance, risk, and compliance, except that it's software and it doesn't sleep. It finds the issues, drafts the fixes, and cuts the time that you'd spend on vendor assessments in half.
In half! Which is exactly why more than 16,000 companies today run on Vanta. Companies like Ramp, Cursor, and Snowflake all stay audit ready and catch the risks that crop up between audits across every vendor, every AI tool, the whole environment.
And that's the real value. Trust has to be continuous now, which is why Vanta automates your security, your compliance, and the work to earn and prove trust. We're huge fans of Vanta over here, and literally hundreds of acquired listeners have become Vanta customers at their companies over the years. So you can get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/acquired. That's VANTA.com/acquired for $1,000 off, and just tell them that Ben and David sent you.
One thing that I just totally lit up when I was reading about this last night, you got a couple of pretty interesting phone calls after the deal was announced.
Yeah, well, when I did the deal, I didn't even think about it, but apparently Jobs was not happy. Steve Jobs was not happy, and so I don't know. A few weeks later, once the deal was announced, I got mail from Steve Ballmer, or got a call from Ballmer or something, and it just said, Steve Jobs is mad about that you acquired Bungie. Call him and try to calm him down, or something like that. And I'm like, it had this phone number, and I'm like, that's Steve Jobs' phone number.
It sounds like here's a noose. Go hang yourself.
I'm like, okay, I can do this. So I dialed the number.
How long did it take you to work up the nerve to dial those?
Not very
those
long,
numbers?
but I had an idea, which was good, which I'll explain in a minute. So I didn't just call with no idea. I called with an idea, and here's the thing, the irony of the whole thing was, the whole deal started when Peter Tamte, the biz dev guy from Bungie, called me. But when we acquired the company, we had room for everybody but him. We didn't have a job for him. And so I felt really bad that he was like the one guy out of the acquisition who ended up without a job. But he had told me that he wanted to start a Mac porting company. And anyway, so that was in my head when I got this mail that, I'm supposed to call Jobs, I kind of put two and two together. And so I call Steve and I say, hey, sorry, I'm the guy who bought Bungie, but we want to do a Mac version of Halo, and actually I want to do a lot of other Mac games. I don't have anything against the Mac. I worked on Mac Excel. I worked on Mac Word. We have Age of Empires and all this other intellectual property from our PC gaming business, and we would love to bring that to the Mac as well. And I know just the guy to do it. There's this guy, Peter Tamte, ex-Bungie guy. He wants to start a company to take a bunch of PC games to the Macintosh. Steve Jobs was really friendly on the phone. He said, that sounds great. Here, let me give you a guy on my team. And he assigned me to somebody on his team to work out the deal. And it was a very short conversation and a friendly one. So it was good. So all of a sudden I had, had this deal for Peter Tamte. Apple agreed to fund the creation of his new company, which was really cool. So he had someone to fund his new company, and we were going to get to port a bunch of our games to the Mac. Maybe we'd make some money on that. So it felt like a real win. There was just one requirement from Apple, and that was that Alex Seropian and I show up to the next Macworld and be on stage with Steve Jobs to announce this new partnership. So I was a little nervous about being a Microsoft guy going on stage in front of like 10,000 Mac people.
Well, Bill Gates had done it before, so
in very dramatic fashion.
So, but I'm like, if that's what it takes to get the deal done, sure, I'll do it. So we agree, and a few months go by, and then it's time for Macworld, and so Alex and I get on a plane and we fly to New York, and driving in from the airport in a cab, and I remember the phone rings because we're going in. We had just landed, and we were supposed to rehearse that afternoon, and then the event was the next morning. And phone rings, and it's one of Steve Jobs' handlers, and they say, rehearsal's really not going well. Steve's really upset with how everything is. We really don't want you guys to come in. We'll go and check into your hotel, and we'll call you after dinner. I'm like, okay. So Alex and I go, we check in, we're waiting. The phone rings, maybe 7:00 at night, and they say, it's still really going badly. Jobs is really mad. Why don't you guys just come in the morning? And I'm like, well, the event is in the morning. And they say, yeah, just show up, and we'll just brief you right before you go on stage. I'm like, okay. Okay, so we get no rehearsal. We're going to go stand in front of 10,000 people, and we're going to say something for a minute or so. It's okay. So we show up the next morning, and just before it starts, Steve Jobs comes over, shakes our hand, says, hey, I'm going to say this at some point during my talk, and then you guys just walk on stage, do your thing, talk for 30 seconds, talk for a minute, and then I'll shake your hands, and then you're off the stage again. Like, okay, we got this. So that's what we did.
So you guys basically got to wing it on stage.
We totally winged it. I haven't seen the video, so I wonder how bad it was. But I tell you, so those are my only encounters ever in my life with Steve Jobs. So it was always he was always very friendly to me. Both times I talked to him on the phone or in person, and he did an amazing job. Sitting in the front row of a Macworld, watching him, just take the audience and just hold their attention, was incredible to see. It was really fun to be part of.
Which is a good, it's a good segue. At that moment, it sort of feels like everybody, Steve Jobs is happy, Mac users are happy, Halo's still coming to the Mac, Take-Two gets Oni, you get a great launch title for the Xbox coming out the next year, and then Halo launches, and we should, we'll dive into so many questions about that, but for the probably 2 or 3 of our listeners out there who don't know what happened next, Halo goes on to the first Halo has I believe a 50% attach rate to all Xboxes sold within the first year of launch. Sells 1 million units in 6 months, 6.5 million units over the lifetime of Halo, which would be estimated. There are no hard numbers out there, but kind of $200 to $300 million in revenue just from the first Halo. But then it goes on and becomes this huge cultural phenomenon and a franchise. I remember in 2004 when Halo 2 launched, I was a freshman in college, and people were organizing trips to the local, GameStop to go buy Halo 2 at midnight. It was incredible.
I think I was up for 24 hours. I mean, just the sheer amount of Mountain Dew and Cheetos.
And so Halo 2 ends up, when it launches in 2004, doing $125 million in sales on the first day, and becomes the fastest selling media product in U.S. history. Bigger than any movie, any album. Really, it was an incredible moment for video games and technology in general. And then the kind of the rest of, well, I would say the rest of the story is history. Would love to bring Ed back in, and the Bungie story takes a few interesting turns along the way. But first, Ed, I mean, when you were desperate, you needed content for the launch. Could you ever? You knew Halo was good, but did you think it was going to be like this?
I hoped it would be. I mean, I have to tell you that, I wish the ride on the inside was as smooth as the one you paint on the outside.
It was a straight line, right?
I mean, the Bungie guys were always incredible to work with, super talented. It was clear from as soon as we got them in that this was an amazing group of people. But a little quirky too. I mean, like Microsoft, just quirky from a Microsoft point of view. Like Microsoft, everybody has, private offices with a door that can shut. And that's like the selling point of going to Microsoft, or at least it was back in the day. You got your own private office. And so I proudly toured the Bungie guys around this new wing that we had just built out for them in one of the buildings. And it was all, brand new private offices from one end to the other. And they looked at me and they said, "We hate this." I said, "What do you mean?" They're like, "We want all these walls torn out, and we just want a big open bay." And I'm like with cubicles, like that was like the lowest status thing you could have at Microsoft, and they're like, yeah, we want cubicles with really low walls. And I'm like, "Oh, you're kidding me." I wish I knew this a few months ago. So the facilities literally had to tear the walls out of this place.
So the acquisition price, never before disclosed of Bungie, was whatever you paid for Bungie, plus all the 2 remodels you did to buildings in Redmond.
The great thing about, working at a big company like Microsoft, when it came to acquisitions, the corp dev people were so incredible. The HR people were so incredible. Somebody like me who ran a business could just basically say, "Make this happen," and it would happen, and they would deal with so many details and so many difficult things, and facilities people as well. It's like, "Make these walls go away." The walls would go away like magic. But, so that was one thing. So we tore out all the walls and gave them the space that they wanted. But every Microsoft team has a test team that supports them, and it's a really important part of Microsoft culture. And they didn't want test team. They're like, "We don't need test team." And I'm like, "Yeah, you do. You really need a group of testers. This is the way we build software at Microsoft."
Did all the engineers just test their own code, or they trade testing responsibility around, or how did they
it's
work?
pretty typical in the game business, especially back then. It's like they thought of testers as a bunch of high school kids, but not professional testers like we had at Microsoft. And so, the other thing the Bungie guys wanted was they wanted secure access to their area. They wanted the only Bungie people, and I suppose me and a few other people, could get into their area. So they had these doors that, that needed card key access to get into. And so anyway, they didn't want the test team. I'm like, "Fine. I'm going to give you a test team, and I'm going to park them right outside your secure doors." Okay. So they're going to sit right outside your doors. And what happened was that test team was run by a guy named Harold Ryan. And the test team really proved themselves to Bungie over the period of that first Halo. They showed them what a group of professional testers can really do. And like an example is they built a giant render farm out of a big pile of Xboxes, and the render farm brought the time to make a new build of Halo down from, 8 hours to a half an hour or something like that. So the next, between Halo 1 and Halo 2, they moved that secure wall to the other side of the testers, so that now the testers were part of the family. So
how's that for tangible success?
And you still, even with the addition of testers, though, one of the things that I think is so incredible about Bungie is later on in Bungie's history in 2007, it ends up getting respun out from Microsoft. And when that happened, there were only 120 people working there, I think, including the testers.
Yeah, do you know who the president of Bungie is right now? Harold Ryan.
Oh, no.
Oh, really?
How about that?
That's awesome. Embracing testing.
So anyway, so that's a story for you. When we first started showing Halo around to the game press, there was a lot of skepticism. They were wary about Microsoft entering the console business to begin with. They thought we really didn't understand console games, which was true. And then we're really excited to show them a first-person shooter, which is a PC genre, looks like a PC game. And they're like, this isn't Mario, this isn't Sonic, this is just proof you guys don't get it. So we got a lot of pushback from the press, actually. E3 2001, we only had half-speed graphics cards in the machines that we had at that time, and so it didn't show that well on the show floor. There was more kind of rumbling in the press. There's Penny Arcade comics from that time where the Penny Arcade guys are really down on the game. I don't know if I can swear on your podcast, but one of them just says Halo is shit. And so coming into launch, it was very unclear whether Halo was going to be our hit title. I mean, we were all playing it, after hours and saying, is this game as good as we think it is? Because this seems amazing. But we're kind of all PC gamers, and we're going, well, maybe we're drinking our own Kool-Aid here. Maybe console gamers won't want this kind of a game.
Did you have to, in preparing for the launch, establish what was going to be your flagship game for varying marketing channels and the way that you're talking about the platform and what you're showing off, or did that sort of organically fall out after you released it?
No, absolutely, we did. We, because we had a certain marketing budget, and probably the biggest thing we had to decide was which titles were going to get TV. And the TV budgets, we could afford to do TV for just a couple titles. And so Oddworld and Halo ended up getting basically equal treatment at launch with big TV campaigns from us. And Oddworld was kind of this is a developer who's known the console world. I should say the game was called Munch's Odyssey. Oddworld's a company, but so that, and then Halo, and that's kind of the way we're sort of not sure, which of these games is gonna do best for us.
Yeah, still not sure. In sort of that like early launch stage like that, how do you know, and how fast do you know which of those two is going to be?
Well, once things start to sell and, reviewers get their hands on it, it becomes clear really quickly. But especially back in those days, there were a lot of things that had a lot of lag when it came to marketing. So, anything that was in print, for example, it was maybe a 3-month delay. If you wanted to be in mailers, or not mailers, but say like a Christmas catalog that gets inserted and insert into newspapers and stuff like that, magazines. It was all like 3 months or 4 months. So we always had to commit to the marketing team 3 or 4 months in advance when a game was going to ship. And then if we weren't there, if one of these circulars ran but the product wasn't available in store, we could get fined, right? So that was always built into our development process. But it's not like today where information just goes boom out there right away and you can make changes right away. There was actually stuff printed with ink, and sat in warehouses.
Yeah. Hard to imagine. What, I'm curious, I really want to ask, especially because the whole theme of our show is thinking about technology, and while there's certainly a huge element of, both Bungie and Halo, and our very first episode we did Pixar, of just content and creativity, there also is a huge element of technology in Halo and Bungie and new technology. And I'm curious from your guys' perspective, to me, the story that I write in my head is, the single player experience of Halo is good. It's, great, I'd buy the game, I'd play it, but what made Halo was multiplayer and networked multiplayer.
Yeah, I remember buying a router specific. Actually, no, I didn't buy the router because I went through my dad's old bin and got one. But doing a router and stringing 4 Xboxes together in my friend's basement.
Yeah.
4 Xbox Live. So the only way to do that
I think every high school kid in America did that at the time.
That's exactly right. I mean, it was one of the only games that you could do that, or because Xbox Live didn't come out for a year later, right? And and so people came up with all kinds of. I remember you could hook your Xbox to a PC, and then people would do these PC connections
you could
over the
install
internet.
software on your PC.
But it was all like handmade and.
How much did you guys both think about that beforehand in terms of this incredible experience of playing with your friends, but then B, how much did that shape the eventual launch of Xbox Live and Halo 2, being to my mind, that first real AAA style, fully realized experience of what playing with other people and your friends anytime you wanted could be?
So, I mean, a few things. It's amazing how much that team accomplished in less than 2 years. I mean, that is not very much time in the game business. And, not only did they have the single player, but they had multiplayer, but they also had split screen multiplayer. They had network multiplayer. They also had split screen co-op play, which you don't even have split screen co-op play in Halo 5. It just ships,
Yeah, controversially.
So, I mean, it was amazing what was in that first game. But after they shipped Halo 1, then working with the Xbox Live team, helping them develop Halo, helping them develop Xbox Live and develop how games would work on Xbox Live. That was a big thing for the Halo team. They worked really closely with Xbox Live. Tons of Halo fans on the Xbox Live side, so they really wanted to work with the Bungie guys. It was a very mutual respect experience there. The problem is Halo wasn't due for, a few more years. Halo 2 wasn't due for a few more years, and I can talk a little about that, what happened there. So somebody reminded me the other day that actually the first Xbox Live title that we launched with our first party group was actually out of that FASA team that I mentioned earlier. And it was a Mech Commander, was the first one. But anyway, meanwhile, the Bungie guys go off after shipping Halo 1 and a couple things happen. Jason Jones, who's, just the creative genius behind everything Bungie, decides he's gonna, leave the Halo team and start a new project. And so he and a small group go off on the side and they start to work on this new project. Meanwhile, the Halo guys, the main Halo team, starts working on Halo 2. And they get a couple years into it, and it's kind of going off the rails without Jason running it. So Jason comes back and he looks at it, and this is about a year before it was supposed to ship, and he's very unhappy with it. And the team has a lot of problems. They tried to do too many things technically. They tried to do this new lighting model that really didn't work. I mean, I love, you guys tell this story like it's so nice and smooth, and Halo 1 came out and Halo 2. For me, it was like this nightmare. It's like Halo 2, it's all screwed up, And then Jason comes back and he's like, I can fix this. And he goes through and just like, redoes a whole big part of Halo 2. But in order to do it, he needs a whole nother year. So it's going to, instead of being out in 2003, it's going to be out in 2004. And so I have to go to Robbie, my boss, and tell him he's not going to have Halo 2 till 2004 and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's not my favorite memories, but I'm glad you liked the game when it came out. So yeah, anyway, that was, Jason got it back on track, and they were able to bring out a game that was really special.
It's so interesting. David and I were talking before this about a parallel to a previous episode. Actually, our first one is Disney acquiring Pixar, and in so many parallels, because it's a creative hits-based business where you're doing the creative studio work in-house and putting this thing out and hoping it really resonates with people. And one of the things that makes that process work is the ability to have that honest conversation internally and the mechanisms by which you fix things when you're off the rails. And there's this incredible parallel here to, the story of Toy Story as it was being developed, where that went totally off the rails.
Toy Story 2.
No, Toy Story 1, the original. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think I've read this too, yeah.
Where Woody was mean.
Yeah.
And they were screening the as far as they had gotten, and it wasn't fully rendered and fully realized, but the story, they had to change the story and rip apart a bunch of storyboards and I think delay a year, because it was just like you were watching the movie and it didn't feel nice and it didn't feel right, and it wasn't the experience they were trying to create. And
they were getting a bunch of feedback, I think, from Katzenberg or something, and it was, all screwed up. I know. You don't really want to see how this stuff is made on the inside. It's just like, oh, this game is awesome.
It's all magic and wonder.
Same thing in regular startups too.
Exactly.
What I don't want to dwell on this for too long because it's not a super core part of the story, and you had left Microsoft by this point, but obviously Halo 2, despite the sausage making being a nightmare for you, goes on to become the most successful, I think, video game of all time at that point when it was launched, and then Halo 3 even eclipsed that and helped launch the Xbox 360. But then after Halo 3, Bungie spins out of Microsoft, and you were gone, so you may not know, but to the extent you do, how and why did that happen? Microsoft ended up retaining a stake in Bungie, but and Bungie kept working on Halo through Reach and ODST. But how did that happen?
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you what I understand about the story, and everything up till now I've talked about stuff I was directly involved with. Now it's more like things I've heard, so I apologize in advance to anyone if I get something not quite right here. But after Halo 2 shipped, there was a disagreement about royalties. There was some kind of royalty agreement between the person who followed me and the guys at Bungie. And after Halo 2 shipped, the Bungie guys felt like that deal was not followed the way they thought it should be. And they decided they would be better off separate, as a separate company again than part of Microsoft. And they went into negotiations with Microsoft to figure out how they could split out and do that. And my understanding is Microsoft agreed to let them go out and become an independent company under the conditions that they do a certain number of titles. And once those titles were made for Microsoft, they were free to go, basically. And so they entered into an agreement to do that. And I think those titles were Halo 3, Halo ODST, and Halo Reach. And so after they finished Halo Reach, they went on to do their new game, Destiny.
All right, listeners. Now is a great time to thank our longtime friend of the show, ServiceNow. If you are running a large enterprise, AI agents are likely spread across every team, and deploying them is no longer the hard part.
Yeah. The hard part is knowing what permissions they have, what employees are using them for, or what decisions AI is making. AI security for an enterprise at scale is not a small concern. Like, the risks are real.
Exactly. And the challenge with AI is governing it, securing it, measuring it, and making sure that it actually delivers value. That is why ServiceNow built the AI Control Tower.
Yep. AI Control Tower gives enterprises a single place to see, manage, govern, and optimize AI across the entire business. And it works with any AI, not just theirs. Every device on your network, every permission across every system, every AI agent visible and secure in one place.
And ServiceNow can do this because they've spent more than 20 years building the operational backbone of the enterprise, the workflows, governance, approvals, security controls, and institutional knowledge that power how work actually gets done across IT, HR, customer service, finance, and security.
ServiceNow already runs more than 100 billion workflows annually and trillions of transactions for more than 85% of the Fortune 500. So when companies need a place to govern AI at enterprise scale, they're building on a platform at the center of how their business already operates.
And in a future that isn't going to be one AI, it's going to be thousands of AI agents working across every function of the company. But the question is, who's managing them all?
So if you're trying to turn AI ambition into real business outcomes and make it work safely, securely, at scale, go check out servicenow.com/acquired and tell them that Ben and David sent you.
So Ed, one of the things that we like to talk about a lot are trying to figure out and pattern match the things from an acquisition that made it successful, that made that experience where, the value of the small company plus whatever it was that the big company brought to the deal, the combination of those things is a gigantic multiple of the two parts, and they're separate. It's kind of a 1 + 1 = 3 thing.
Yeah.
What characteristics, and what actions and what things transpired that made this so successful?
Well, I think, most game developers pretty much feel the same, which is like, I just want to make an incredible game. I want to have the resources to make the game that I have in my head, and then I want to see it have an honest chance to reach its market, right? To reach as many people as possible. So, if you think about trying to do that as a little struggling independent company like Bungie was versus trying to do it under the umbrella of Microsoft that's about to launch a brand new console and has a $300 million marketing budget and it's going to, make a lot of noise about this new platform. I mean, that's a big opportunity for someone to have their ideas and their creativity right along with that big push. So that's I think what's in it for a game developer to want to team up and be part of this bigger thing. I think the challenge along the way is, and this is something we always, I worried a lot about and we worked hard on is one of the things that makes these teams special is they have their own unique culture. Like, that's what you should hear when I'm saying Bungie wanted to rip out the walls because they worked super collaboratively as a team. They wanted the programmers and the artists and to be able to just shout to each other across this room, and by the way, if you go to visit Bungie's office now, it's in this giant, what used to be a movie theater, and it's a giant bay. It's still completely open because that's part of their culture, so how do you integrate something creative into a bigger company like a Microsoft and still protect it so that it can have its own unique culture? I think that's really the challenge of management that's running something like that.
Yeah, and there's obviously a tension you have to manage there between, efficiencies of the larger business and respecting the culture of the smaller. Did you struggle at all with the decision to move them to Red?
I didn't, but in retrospect, I probably wouldn't have done it later. We went through multiple other acquisitions over time, and I think the more you can do to preserve the culture of the company, the better, because I think that's really what makes them unique, and that uniqueness, at least in the entertainment world, is really important. It expresses itself in the product itself. So, I like to talk about how. I had these two really great teams who worked for me. One was called Ensemble Studios, and they did the Age of Empires series down in Texas. And another, the Bungie team. And if you looked at the cultures of those two companies, they were almost diametrically opposed. Like if you wrote their values down, there would be like opposite lists, like Bungie would be like, we're hardcore, and Ensemble would be, we're a family, I don't know, stuff like that. It would just be really different. And that kind of taught me that it's not, that there isn't like a culture that works, it's like having a culture is what matters. It's not which culture you have that matters, having a strong culture that attracts specific people that fit within that culture and really enforcing it and really making it, that the culture ends up just expressing itself in the product. I don't know how else to say it. So
yeah, it's so cool to hear you say that because that's such been a core theme of our whole show and part of the reason we decided to do this.
Good. I haven't heard any other episodes, so
yeah. Well, we talked about Pixar. We've done Instagram and we've done Twitch, and all of those are were companies that when they were acquired had a very, very strong culture that's, so far at least with all of them, been allowed to remain independent, and they've all thrived hugely. And for us, I think a big takeaway has been the importance of doing that. When when you have a great culture, that's when great things get created.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things was we were able to bring those two Bungie teams together, though. The Chicago team and the California team together in one spot. And we needed that, I think, to get the Halo work done. So maybe in that case it was the right thing to do. But in general, it's not always the right thing to do. And then the challenge you have in a bigger organization is how do you integrate with the other parts of the company that need to work with you? I had gone through a process of integrating marketing into my game teams when I was doing PC gaming business. And even though the marketing guys didn't technically report to me, they were integrated and sitting with my teams all through the organization. And then after Xbox came along, there was all of a sudden this kind of bigger Xbox organization, and the head of Xbox marketing wanted to have all his marketing people under him sitting in his building. So they all got pulled out, and I think it was a really bad decision because they really got separated from the teams, and all of a sudden it was sort of an us and them kind of thing rather than that we're all working together. We do different functions, but we're all trying to do the same thing. I mean, an example of that would be the first TV ads came back from the agency for Halo, and we showed them to the Bungie guys, and they hated them. They really, really hated them. There's a guy running around with a gun and he's shooting stuff, and they're, and you might think, oh, that's what Halo's about. To the Bungie guys, that is not what Halo is about at all. For them, Halo is like the quiet before the storm. It's that epic long vista that you see and realize you're going to be heading there later. It's
the original theme music.
Yeah, it's the music. It's all that. So we had to way back and try to fix this, TV commercial. But that's the kind of stuff that happened when there isn't this integrated team working together all the way through so that they really understand the vision for the product.
Yeah, it's so interesting thinking about just from my time at Microsoft when we kind of had the one Microsoft reorg and went functional from divisional, and where's the appropriate place in the hierarchy to separate into divisions versus functions. So with functions being, you have all the marketing people together for all the business groups and all the tech people together for all the business groups versus, having these sort of family units of these separate divisions where everyone's totally integrated.
Right.
And it sounds like, at least in this kind of creative endeavor space, the divisional kind of works better and all the different functions need to be super tightly integrated with each other.
I was at Microsoft 18 years. I mean, so I don't know how many times I saw that that reorg happen back one way and then back the other and back one way and back the other, It's like the grass is always greener, it's like one way has a certain set of problems and the other way has a different set of problems. And so it seems like they just toggle back and forth between the two. I don't really understand it. But.
Well, one of the things we do on our show that we really enjoy doing is 3 segments in particular that we can run through quickly. And Ed, we'd love you to participate too. The first is that Ben and I each assign a category to the acquisition, and the kind of 5 we've identified, we could find more that break out of the box, but the 5 we've identified are people, technology, product, business line, or I guess 4. The 5th is other wild card. But yeah, for me, it's interesting. I have really pegged Halo and Bungie as a product acquisition for Microsoft. But it's interesting, hearing you talk, Ed, it's really, I think you've given a lot of data to support people as well. Ultimately, I think I'm going to stick with product simply because more than anything, because of the spin out that ended up happening later on and Bungie going on to leave Microsoft and that DNA to leave Microsoft and Halo sticking behind as a product for Xbox. What would you say, Ben?
I'm not going to disagree. I think it's absolutely that. Like you said, there's definitely a learning from the folks at Bungie about their culture and about how to produce that sort of game and bring it to a platform that nobody thought was going to have a first-person shooter like the PC and things like that. But yeah, I think my vote would be product. Ed, what do you think?
I'm sticking with the people for sure. I mean, it's one thing to create a franchise, and it's another to continue it. Is one thing I'd say. And these are the people that created Halo, out of nothing. And so, it's true. There's a different team that's moving Halo forward now, and they've added a lot of interesting new things to the franchise. But Bungie created it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they created Destiny, which I also think is very good. So I don't know. I just always fall on the side of the people are what really matter in these companies.
Well, one of the pieces of feedback we've gotten is we need more disagreement on this show. So
all right.
This is great. We're going to bring people in like you had to disagree with us. You're welcome back anytime.
if David and I keep agreeing, we'll just bring in third parties that can gang up on us. It's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Second to last segment. This is my favorite. We talk about because this is about technology acquisitions as a whole. This show, we talk about, is there an underlying kind of generalizable and broader theme in technology that this acquisition embodies or represents? For me, and this is why I thought Destiny was a great seg. For me, the Bungie acquisition represents the power of whenever there's a platform shift in technology, and that happens very discreetly in the gaming industry where, first there was early PC gaming and early consoles, and then consoles really became dominant with the age of Xbox and PlayStation 2, and Halo and Bungie rode that success, and then in recent times, there's been the age of free to play, the simultaneous age of free to play and mobile, and it's interesting to see. Halo is still a huge part of the cultural landscape, at least in the media landscape in the U.S. But the gaming industry, has moved on in a lot of ways, and what's big now are companies enabled by this next wave, and that's where Bungie's gone with Destiny. So for me, this power of whenever there's a platform shift in gaming or other parts of technology, the ability to not totally wipe away the companies and the winners from before, but create new winners and bigger winners. I think Halo and Bungie represent that really well.
Yeah, I see it maybe a little differently, but kind of I'll pick the same milestones as you. For me, it was the time when, the Bungie acquisition happened at a time when the publishers were getting bigger and there was consolidation among the publishers. So it was getting there was this economy of scale of being big at that time, and that Activision's and Electronic Arts and Take-Two's and Microsoft's had an advantage. And the little kind of mom and pop developer publisher was going away. Bungie's an example. Another acquisition we did was a company called Access Software that did our golf and tennis and other games. So there's, these things start small and then they get somewhat bigger, and then at some point, economy of scale really matters. Scale really matters, and then you start to see a lot of acquisitions, and so that was what was happening kind of in the around 2000 when this Bungie acquisition happened. It's also what's happening now in free to play. So to follow on your example, I was on the board of Z2. Z2 was really early free to play company. Had a bunch of hits, Trade Nations and Battle Nations. At some point, scale started to really matter in free to play. If you're going to compete with, Clash of Clans or or Candy Crush or something, with just these massive audiences, and you really want to drive traffic to your game, it really matters that if you have this big audience out there. And so it was getting harder and harder for Z2 to compete. And, just like Microsoft bought Bungie, it made a lot of sense for King to buy Z2. So I think, there's kind of cycles to this stuff, and we see it, over and over again. It's, maybe it's not just one platform shift. Maybe it's, just a natural evolution of each market, right? As some new market comes, you have a lot of little guys at the beginning, a lot of experimenters, and then change over time.
And with that, I'll kind of take us into our last section where we render a conclusion. Grades A through F, you get pluses and minuses. And I'll kick it off by asking you a question, Ed. Do you think that the Xbox would be the success that it is today if the Bungie team and your team didn't pull off this acquisition?
I really don't. I think Halo is hugely important to the success of Xbox. I don't know if there would have been an Xbox 360 if there was no Halo with Xbox. So I think it was incredibly important.
Famously, Microsoft criticized for years and years and years of not making money on Xbox and it not being something the company was serious about. And then, where we see where it's gone today and kind of being part of the same platform as Windows and doing so much more than gaming, and the company really taking the whole thing seriously and combined with the HoloLens and a lot of other future bets they're making.
Minecraft, future episode.
Yep. Really paving the way for the future of the company. So it's pretty amazing to hear how important it was to the creation of the platform.
When I went to work on games in the mid-90s, I was leaving a successful career in Office. I'd been there in 10 years. And I was told a couple things. I was told that I was committing career suicide. And I was told, why would you leave Office, one of the most important parts of the company, to go work on something no one cares about? And that was that was a great motivator for me to go and make games. Be an important part of Microsoft. And so
I think you could argue a lot more people care about, maybe not a lot, at least as many people who care about Office care about games today.
Yeah, I think it's an important part of the company. I'm proud of that.
It's funny, this is like the part of the show where I always bring in Christensen, but boy, does that sound like low-end disruption. Even in your career, right? You're leaving to go and play with the thing that nobody can take seriously, and it's a total toy, and how could it ever get big, and this is the thing that matters, and it's the Titan that's been trucking along forever. It's just so reminiscent of every startup that comes out of nowhere, and then suddenly nobody can understand how everyone's taking it seriously, and it's such a gigantic market.
Well, as I'll just say it's fun to be part of that.
Yeah. All right. Well, A+. I showed my card.
Yeah.
Talking off the ledge, David.
This is we'll let Ed go last here. I've been struggling with this one, and not just for creating disagreement for the sake of the show, but this acquisition, really any perspective you look at it, and that one that Ben, you and Ed were just talking about is such a powerful one. Look at it financially. I mean, over the lifetime of the Halo franchise, and there's no way anybody could have foreseen this at the time, but it's made over $5 billion in revenue just from game sales alone. That's before merchandise. That's before movies. That's before machinima, which was a whole nother category that Halo really helped launch, although Microsoft didn't monetize by it. So, really any dimension you look at it, it's an incredible acquisition. The thing that I struggle with a little bit, I come back to this spinoff and I think about what both Halo and Xbox and Bungie, what all three of them could have been if that creative team had really continued being a central part of Xbox and gaming going forward. And for many years, while mobile was rising and while free to play was rising, Halo wasn't part of it. And I don't know. I think about what it could have been. So obviously, it's really great acquisition. I think I removed the plus because of that, so it's an A for me.
So wait, your argument is that
I argue that there's some unrealized potential here. Nothing against you, Ed, but
yeah. Do you think it's
because it spun out? You're saying because they lost it again that
Yeah, in 2007, which ended up was the very top of the console market, or at least close to it before the next wave was coming. And right then, Microsoft lost Bungie.
So are you blaming the Microsoft missing mobile on them not?
Windows Phone is a direct result of the Bungie spin-out, Ben.
Well, even mobile gaming, right? Like Microsoft never had they have this incredible presence in console gaming, and like when I'm sitting there screwing around on my phone playing Clash of Clans or whatever, like it's not a Microsoft property. Yep. Do you think that there's like unrealized potential if that team had stuck there that they?
I don't know. Maybe not, and maybe even Destiny never would have happened within Microsoft. So I don't know. But I look at Halo today and I think, and maybe it's just the natural course of things, but it's not as culturally relevant as it once was, and not as relevant to video gaming as a whole as it once was. And,
okay. Well, a few things. Microsoft had a right of first refusal on Destiny, so they could have poached it if they wanted to. So, whether they made the right choice on that or not, I guess time will tell. But that's just one thing to think about. I was probably involved in a dozen or so acquisitions, big and small, at Microsoft, and definitely the one that went the best was acquiring Bungie. So I'm not going to give myself an A+, but I'll give myself.
Yeah, you're grading yourself here. So.
I'll go with A because this was the number one that I was involved with.
Oh, sounds good to me. And it's kind of funny. Like we throw these arbitrary grades around, but it's sort of just a framework for us to get to dig in a little bit and think about what could have been or what was unrealized.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Ed. We really appreciate all the time. Super special treat both for us and our listeners. And like I said, you're welcome back anytime to disagree with us.
Hey, thanks a lot. It was really fun to be part of this.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And for listeners, we are Acquired FM on Twitter. Yeah, sorry this one went so long, but I just got real into it.
So many great moments. Thanks again, Ed.
Take it easy, guys.
Who got the truth? Is it you? Is it you? Is it you? Who got the truth now? Huh?
All right, listeners, now is a great time to talk about one of our favorite companies, Statsig.
Yes, longtime acquired partner. There is a reason why the best product teams at companies like OpenAI and Notion, Atlassian, Figma, Rippling, Brex, and more rely on Statsig, whether they are iterating on their core product features or shipping AI-powered experiences at scale.
Yep. In the crazy speed of today's AI world, shipping fast is just table stakes now. It's basically trivial to build and deploy your app constantly. The real advantage is how quickly you learn what changes actually created value for customers and how fast you can use that signal to guide what you ship next. Whether it's a feature tweak, a pricing change, a performance improvement, or an AI update like a model change or prompt adjustment, they're not relying on instinct. They're measuring what actually moved engagement, retention, and ultimately revenue. And as more teams build with AI, that learning loop becomes even more important. Building with LLMs introduces non-determinism into your product experience. The same input doesn't always produce the same output, and behavior can shift in subtle ways in real-world use.
So doing offline evals will give you part of the picture, but you can really only understand the impact once your product is live with real users, and then you can measure how their behavior actually changes. It's very different than the way that you would ship features in a pre-AI world where you knew exactly what the software was going to do in production.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is where Statsig comes in. It brings experimentation, feature flags, and product analytics into one unified system so teams can ship safely, test rigorously, and directly link what they changed to how users actually behaved. The result is a tighter feedback loop and learning that compounds over time, so you don't just ship more, you ship better.
So if you want to make learning your competitive advantage, whether you're building new AI experiences or just evolving your existing core product, go to statsig.com/acquired to get started.